have moved it. Okay, so
Either one of us moved it or we moved it.
sorry. Okay, so we're going to talk about factoring, and basically, at this point, we are talking about parabolas. As we start moving into, you know, polynomials that start with an x squared, that's the kind of stuff that moves us into talking about parabolas, either a smiley face parabola or a sad face parabola. They're awesome. They're so fun. This is really the best. I mean, this is my favorite part of Algebra 1, by far. So guys, really, I need you guys to really pay attention, okay? No, none of this stuff, okay? And what I'm teaching is I'm giving you a bunch of tools for your tool belt, right? Right now you don't know how to use those tools or why you would need to use those tools. But trust me, once I have given you all the tools you need, we're going to then use them for real life situations, okay? And it's pretty amazing the stuff you can figure out, right? It's actually not that complicated, but at first it is like people's brains are all mush and confused and whatever. But once you get it, it's really, really simple, okay? And so that's my goal for you guys, is to get it so that to that point, this point where it's like, oh, this is a piece of cake, right? And so we have talked about factoring out the greatest common factor. And I call that the cardinal rule of factoring. Nobody else does that I know of. But that's what I call the cardinal rule of factoring. Factoring out the greatest common factor. The reason why is you always start with that. If you can factor out a greatest common factor, you do. Okay? You always check that first. That way you know your final answer is going to be in the simplest form. If you don't do that, sometimes your answer will not be in the simplest form and you will get the wrong answer, right? Even though it's right, it's not as simple as it could be, right? So, but today I'm gonna add a new tool for your tool belt, and that is factoring a simple quadratic trinomial. First of all, let's understand what a simple quadratic formula would look like without an equal sign, so like an expression. It would be like this. If a quadratic trinomial would be ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay? Now, when I say a simple quadratic trinomial, we're talking about factoring simple quadratics.
You know
In order for this to be simple, at least my definition of simple, is this, that a equals 1.
Right, this is ironic. It doesn't sound simple, factoring simple quadratic trinomials.
Yes, you're right.
That sounds so simple, Gary. I mean,
I agree.
I feel
I
like
agree.
this should be second
Yeah.
grade math.
Yeah, I know, I agree.
I'll wait and you write this down.
All right, so if a is 1, that means I'm just going to write x squared. I'm not going to write 1x squared, right? When I have an example, when I have a problem. So let's start a problem. Now, first I'm going to start with FOIL. I'm going to take FOIL and I'm going to multiply it out, and I'm going to get an equation. Get a trinomial, a simple quadratic trinomial. Okay, and then I'm going to go backwards and factor it back to what it was before I FOILed it out, before I multiplied it out, right? So you can see how they relate. FOIL is, what we're going to do now is just the backwards. We're going backwards with FOIL, right? So let's say I did x plus 2 times, this is my first problem, x plus 2 times x plus 3. So, Michael, help me FOIL this.
Okay, so first we do x times x, so that's x to the second.
Right?
And then you do the outside, so x and 3, so that's 3x.
Okay.
And then inside, so 2x plus 2x. And then last, plus 6.
Beautiful. Okay, and your final answer is?
X.
You can add those.
Okay, x to the second plus 5x plus 6.
Beautiful. Okay. So great. So we started with two blobs, right? X plus 2 and x plus 3, multiplying together using FOIL, and we got this final answer. Now what we have to do is learn how to go from this quadratic, simple quadratic trinomial
Go up there.
backwards to get to a factored form. Remember what I talked about? Factoring makes things, it gives you more options on how to solve something. Worldwide crises, right? Lack of water, clean water. Huge issue, right? It gets smaller as we can actually solve these issues, or at least make a bigger dent in solving them when we break it up into its different factors. The same thing is true with math. I can give you a piece of gobbledygook, and then once I factor it, there are things that I can do with it, right? I'm not going to teach you what you can do with it now. I'm only teaching you the tool for your tool belt of taking this back to this, okay? And it's really easy, and actually it's really fun. I think you're going to love it once you understand. So this is what you're looking for. You're looking for, okay, so you're looking for this. Factors of C that add to B. So write that down in your notes. That's all you're looking for. Factors of C that add to B. Now, this is my B, and this is my C. So I'm looking for factors of 6 in this case, right? So I'm looking for factors of 6. So this is what I actually do. And I recommend, I want to see everybody doing it at first. There will be a day when you can start doing these in your head without doing this. But I want to see, if I don't see this, I'm going to tackle you. I'm going to jump on you. And I'm going to make you do it, right? So you're going to take C and you write it over here. And you're going to do this, a little fork. And you're going to think of what are two numbers that multiply to equal 6. So 2 times 3, 2 times 3. Now you're going to see, if I add these two numbers together, do I get 5?
Yes.
Son of a gun. Then this is what I'm going to need. So all I now have to do with a simple quadratic trinomial, when a is 1, is immediately draw my two sets of parentheses. I know that the beginning has to be x and x. That's the only way I could get x squared. X times x would be x squared, right? All right, now this says one of my factors is positive 2, so I'm going to put positive 2, which means plus 2. And the other factor is positive 3, so I'm going to put positive 3, or plus 3. And now, if I do my FOIL, first is x squared, outside is 3x, inside is 2x, last is 6. 3x plus 2x, watch this, 3x plus 2x. Do you see how I'm doing this? 3x, the outsides, plus 2x is 5x. So x squared plus 5x plus 6. X squared plus 5x plus 6. There we go. So I factored it. Right? It's not hard. All I'm doing is looking for factors of C, which in this case were 2 times 3, that add together to equal B, which in this case is 5.
Why didn't we just leave it that way in the beginning?
Leave it. Oh, I'm trying to show you how FOIL is related to this. So I went, normally I'm not going to give you this. I'm going to give you this. And I'm going to ask you to factor it to this. That's our next problem. But when I usually first teach it, I start with this so you can see how you're going forwards and then you're going to go backwards. You're going to go back to the factors.
So the answer is the x plus 2 times x plus 3?
Yes, this is the answer.
Oh,
I was just showing you that by foiling it, I got the original problem, right? It's always a good idea to check your work, right? And that outside plus inside, if you can get in that habit, far out plus far in, does that equal the middle term? That's where people usually mess up, right? They get factors of 6. Oh, they might say, it's 6 times 1. That equals 6. Perfect. And 6 minus 1 is 5. But that's not 6 minus 1. That's 6 plus 1. That's 7, right? But so they immediately write, oh, x plus 6 times x plus 1, and they say, I did it! I'm done! I'm awesome, right? Well, you're awesome, that's true. But you didn't do it, right? You messed up, right? So that's that. Okay, so now let's try a few. Let's try a few. Okay, that was number 1. Now let's try number 2. Let's say I gave you this. X squared plus 8x plus 15.
Oh.
So, Ben.
Okay, so
So
5 and 3.
immediately write your positive 15 here.
5 and 3.
5 and 3. 5 and 3. What's 5 plus 3?
8.
Oh my gosh, that okay. So what's your final answer?
It would be x plus 5 and x plus 3.
Beautiful. See how easy that is? Piece of cake, right? Piece of cake. I think all of the ones, let me just see. They're all pretty straightforward. Okay, well let's try another. Let's do 3. How about x squared plus 8x plus 12. Okay, so Michael, I got my 12 here.
4 and 3.
4 and 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 plus 3 is
7. Oh wait.
oh.
6
Oh, 6 and 2. Ah, 6 times 2 is another option. 6 plus 2 is 8. Yes, so what's my final answer?
X plus 2 times L plus 6.
Right.
Gary, where are you putting multiplication symbols between the thing and the thing that did?
Right here?
Yeah.
Because 4 times 3 is 12. 6 times 2 is 12. But then you add them. 6 plus 2 is 8. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you got to remember you're doing 2 things with those 2 numbers. You're multiplying them to make sure they equal C, and adding them to make
What
sure
if
they
you
equal B.
gave us like 71? If that's a prime number, and you had to get 8, how would you possibly do that? If it was
That's
like
another tool.
What if it was
Huh.
x squared plus 8x plus 71?
Yeah, that would be another tool.
The water's
Sometimes, so Ben has a great question. I'm giving you ones that are factorable, right? You can factor these using these tools that I'm giving you. But Ben is right. Real life does not usually give you ones that are factored real nice and neatly and tidy. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't, right? So you have to know how to deal with both. We're not there yet. I will teach you how to deal with the ones that don't factor easily using these methods. There is another thing called the quadratic formula, or completing the square. 2 different processes that will always work, right? Always work. Although, well, yeah, no, that's for another day, sorry.
homework.
There's a lot, yes, homework.
Can we just
There's
do
a
our-
lot to this stuff, and it's really cool. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off, and I'm gonna let you start.